They're also planning to slaughter 5 red cows.
And the thing about that is, there hasn't been one since the time of Moses.
From this picture, you can tell that the Euphrates River is dying now. Soon, it will be the river without water.
The timelines have shifted. What was once distant is now present. And 10 markers, etched into scripture, have turned from theory into history. Not 1, not 5, 10. They were written across generations, spoken by seers, preserved in scrolls, dismissed by kings, buried by skeptics, and now fulfilled before open eyes that do not see. These aren't loose parallels or poetic interpretations. These are alignments, precise and undeniable, between what was foretold and what now stands revealed. The world is unraveling in patterns the prophets already traced. And while most are distracted, entertained, or sedated, the stones are speaking, the rivers are drying, the ancient warnings are whispering again. We begin at number 10. The Euphrates River is drying up. The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way. In Revelation 16:12, John saw a river vanish. But it wasn't just a river. It was a border, a boundary between kingdoms, a prophetic line separating judgment from unfolding war. For centuries, theologians debated whether this was symbolic or literal, a figure of speech, a metaphor. But then, the satellite images came. In 2022, the Euphrates began to recede. By 2023, bridges once underwater stood exposed. By 2025, entire sections of the riverbed were cracked, sun-scorched, and dry. Local villagers walked where fishing boats once sailed. The ancient flow that once nourished empires, Babylon, Assyria, Persia, was reduced to a vein of dust. Geopolitically, the Euphrates runs through Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, a corridor of ancient hostility and modern alliances. And just as Revelation foresaw, that dried corridor has become a highway of movement. Military units, rebel factions, foreign agents. The warpaths are clearing. And something else is emerging. Mysterious underground structures, previously hidden beneath the river. Turkish archaeologists have confirmed buried temple ruins, some predating recorded civilization. But it's the silence that matters. The silence of governments. The lack of global coverage. The world doesn't want you to see this. Yet here it is. A dried river. A cleared path. A prophecy. Already activated. What else is buried beneath what used to flow? And more urgently, who is preparing to march across it? 2. The rebirth of Israel's language. For then I will restore to the peoples a pure language, that they may all call on the name of the Lord. Zephaniah 3:9. The Hebrew language was not just spoken, it was sacred, the language of covenant, the voice of prophets. But after the destruction of the Second Temple in AD 70, it fell into shadows, reserved for scholars, priests, and scribes. The people scattered. The tongue grew silent. Dead, some called it, but prophecy called it temporary. Zephaniah saw something strange, a future where God would restore a pure language. Not invent one, not create a new one, restore. It was a prophecy that required cultural resurrection, a scattered people returning to a scattered land and breathing life into a silenced tongue. In 1881, Eliezer ben Yehuda, an exiled Jew from Lithuania, arrived in Ottoman Palestine. He believed one thing: Hebrew must live again, and he refused to speak any other language, not even to his son. He created a modern dictionary from ancient roots, invented words for train, electricity, democracy. What began as one man's obsession became a national movement. In 1948, The rebirth of Israel made modern Hebrew its official language, and today, in 2025, a once-dead language is spoken by over 9 million people, on city streets, in military briefings, in kindergarten classrooms. But it's not just a national miracle, it's a prophetic trigger, because for messianic prophecies, temple restoration, and end times worship to be fulfilled, Hebrew had to return first. What other nation has restored a language after 2,000 years to national fluency? None. Even tech reflects it. Artificial intelligence platforms now speak Hebrew. The Torah is coded into learning models. Pilgrims in Jerusalem use Hebrew translating apps to recite psalms aloud at the Wailing Wall. A pure language, restored, spoken, prophesied, and now it echoes again across the land. But if the language has returned, what words are being prepared to be spoken next? 3. Global knowledge explosion. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Daniel 12:4. He was told to seal the scroll. Daniel, the prophet of empires and exile, saw visions that spanned centuries, but one command stood out above all. Seal the words until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Some assumed this meant spiritual revelation. Others took it literally. But Daniel saw what others couldn't. Movement and information, merging in a way the world had never known. In 1800, knowledge doubled every 100 years. By 1945, it doubled every 25. In 2025, knowledge now doubles every 12 hours. Planes, satellites, AI, neural mapping, quantum computing. Humans now generate 328.77 million terabytes of data every day. Medical records, live satellite footage, prophetic sermons, and ancient manuscripts uploaded, translated, digitized. What was once locked in scrolls in clay jars is now available in seconds from anywhere on Earth. But knowledge alone isn't wisdom. The prophecy warned of people running to and fro, not just physically, but digitally. Billions swipe, scroll, download, and upload. But fewer listen. And now artificial intelligence speaks in multiple languages. It writes, it calculates, it predicts, it even mimics scripture. Some call it progress, others call it prophecy. In 2023, Israeli researchers trained neural networks to interpret the Dead Sea Scrolls. In 2024, a Jerusalem-based institute developed a prototype AI that recites biblical genealogies in real time, connecting prophecies across generations. Knowledge has increased, beyond imagination, beyond restraint. But Daniel didn't say it would lead to peace. He simply said it would happen, that it would mark the time of the end. And now, we live in an age where children ask Siri to explain Ezekiel. The scroll has been unsealed. But if knowledge has increased beyond the capacity of man, who is truly in control of it? The return of the red heifers. Speak to the children of Israel that they bring you a red heifer without blemish. Numbers 19:2. It's one of the most overlooked commands in Scripture, and yet one of the most essential for end-time prophecy. The red heifer, a creature so rare, so specific, that for over 2,000 years it didn't exist. In the law of Moses, the ashes of a red heifer were required for ritual purification, especially before entering the temple. No spots, no defects, never yoked. A perfect red heifer had to be sacrificed outside the camp, burned, and its ashes preserved. Without it, according to Numbers 19, no priest could serve, and no temple worship could resume. Which is why, for centuries, devout Jews prayed not for kings or riches, but for the birth of a cow. And then, in September 2022, 5 red heifers arrived in Israel, flown in from Texas, certified by rabbis, untouched by harness or blemish. They were quarantined, studied, and guarded, and by 2025, at least 2 remain unblemished, still viable, still watched, still waiting. The Temple Institute in Jerusalem confirmed their presence. They've built the altars, reconstructed the vessels, the garments, the blueprints, everything for the third temple, except the ashes. And now, they may be one sacrifice away. Why does this matter? Because for the abomination of desolation to occur, for the Antichrist to stand in the holy place, there must first be a holy place. And for that to happen, the purification must begin. One animal, 2,000 years, now standing on Israeli soil. Some believe it's coincidence, others call it conspiracy. But for those who watch prophecy unfold, not with superstition, but with scripture, it is a clear and ancient signal. The system is being rebuilt, and just as the temple once rose before Messiah's first coming, it will rise again before his return. The heifer lives, but when will the smoke rise? 5. Jerusalem, becoming a cup of trembling. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about. Zechariah 12:2. It doesn't have oil, it doesn't have size, it doesn't sit on a global trade route. And yet, Jerusalem is the most contested piece of ground on earth. Zechariah foresaw it not just as a holy city, but as a cup of trembling, a focal point of nations, tensions, and divine pressure. And today, the prophecy is no longer poetic. It's playing out on headlines, borders, and battle maps. Since 2023, the spiritual and political pressure around Jerusalem has escalated. The US reaffirmed its embassy in the city, defying international backlash. The United Nations passed repeated resolutions condemning Israeli control over East Jerusalem. Iran and its proxies, including Hezbollah and the Houthis, have explicitly declared Jerusalem their ultimate prize. Thousands of Jewish worshippers ascend the Temple Mount annually, despite restrictions and threats. And behind closed doors, rumors of renewed Third Temple discussions are circulating, driven by religious leaders, archaeologists, and political factions. All the while, violence flickers like lightning on the mount. In May 2025, clashes erupted between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters over archaeological excavations near the southern wall, sites believed to lead to ancient chambers once connected to Solomon's temple. Footage of explosions, rubber bullets, and weeping women flooded social media. But beneath the chaos was a deeper reality. Jerusalem isn't trembling because of man. It's trembling because the prophecy is active. Even global diplomacy bends around it. Peace talks rise and fall by how Jerusalem is handled. Presidents lose elections over what they say about it. Terror groups name their campaigns after it, and scriptures revolve around it. It is not just a city, it is a stage. And Zechariah's words weren't a warning to Israel. They were a warning to the world. As the shaking intensifies, what happens when the cup finally spills? 6. The rise of a one-world currency system. And no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark. Revelation 13:17. It started with convenience. Then came digital wallets, biometric scans, then central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, wrapped in the language of stability and safety. But Revelation 13 didn't speak in vague terms. It described an era where global commerce would be controlled, regulated not by cash or coin, but by permission. In 2025, that future is no longer theoretical. Over 130 nations are currently researching or testing CBDCs. Major players, China's digital yuan, Europe's digital euro, the US FedNow program, and India's e-rupee, are moving from test phases to real-world implementation. But it's not just national currencies anymore. There are now calls for interoperability, a financial fusion language where currencies speak to one another across borders. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, is already piloting a universal ledger, a blockchain backbone, a system where all nations plug in, and a central structure mediates access. A global coin may not be minted, but the gatekeeping system already exists. And layered on top of that are biometric payment trials. In Sweden, people are paying with microchips embedded in their hands. In India, thumbprint-based digital identity systems control access to welfare, banking, and travel. In Nigeria, cash limits have driven rural populations into fully digital ecosystems, whether they're ready or not. Each step is framed as progress, but prophecy warned of a day where buying and selling would no longer be a right, but a privilege granted by a system. And now, that system is nearly built. We're not watching the future unfold. We're watching the infrastructure of Revelation 13 being coded, updated, and uploaded. The beast may not be visible yet, but its platform is already online. If currency is no longer cash, if access is no longer free, then what happens to those who refuse to comply? What happens to faith when faith costs everything? 7. The nations turning against Israel. I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. Zechariah 14:2. It was never a question of if, only when. The scriptures warned of a time when the nations would turn, not just in politics, but in spirit. A global turning, a coordinated contempt. In 2025, it's no longer just ideological. It's visible, tangible, measured in votes, resolutions, and blood. The United Nations Human Rights Council has passed more resolutions condemning Israel than any other nation, combined. In May 2025, it passed Resolution 76/17, labeling the construction of housing in East Jerusalem a war crime. 57 countries backed it. Even Western allies abstained. Elsewhere, protests flood capitals: Paris, London, Johannesburg, Washington, D.C. Crowds chant from the river to the sea, not as a call for peace, but for erasure. In Latin America, trade partnerships with Israel are being quietly dissolved. In Africa, anti-Israel rhetoric has infiltrated media funded by foreign regimes. In Europe, universities boycott Israeli academics, even in non-political fields. But perhaps most ominous, alliances are forming. Iran, Turkey, and Russia have conducted joint military exercises directed toward Israeli airspace. China now imports military-grade drone tech into Syria under the banner of regional stability. And in Gaza, Hezbollah and Hamas unite under renewed promises to liberate Jerusalem or die. The nations are stirring, but prophecy is unfolding. Zechariah saw the day they would gather, not just geographically, but in agreement. He saw a global chorus that would rise not against tyranny or evil, but against the people God set apart. Even within the church, confusion spreads. Voices grow silent. Support is withdrawn. The fig tree blossomed. But now, the world demands its roots be torn out. And yet, this too was foretold. I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone. All who burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. Zechariah 12:3. They don't know they're aligning with ancient prophecy. They believe it's justice, but it is judgment that draws near, as flags are waved and war drums beat. The question hangs above the nations. Who dares rise against what God has planted? 8. The gospel preached to all nations. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Matthew 24:14. It was one of the final signs, not war, not famine, not even the rebuilding of the temple, but the global reach of the gospel. Before the end comes, Jesus said, his message must cross every language, every border, every tribe, and in 2025, it has, through satellites, through mobile phones, through translations never before imagined. As of this year, the Bible has been translated in part or in whole into over 3,600 languages. New Testament access alone now covers over 95% of the world's population. But it didn't stop with pages. The Jesus Film Project, based on the Gospel of Luke, has now been translated into 2,100 plus languages and streamed over 700 million times, many in regions where missionaries are forbidden. Shortwave radio still pulses across deserts and mountain ranges, whispering the name of Christ where governments cannot reach. In the jungles of Papua New Guinea, in the Arctic tribal camps of Siberia, in underground house churches in Tehran and Pyongyang. The word has arrived, and now artificial intelligence is accelerating the work. AI tools are translating ancient scripture into tribal dialects in under 24 hours. Voice replication allows sermons to be spoken in native tongues by pastors who've never left their village. Entire unreached people groups are hearing the gospel through earbuds, and all of it, quietly fulfilling the words of Jesus, spoken on a hillside to a small group of men, now echoing across the earth. The kingdom message has not just gone out, it is being received. Conversions are rising in unexpected places: Iran, China, Afghanistan. The persecuted church is growing faster than the free church, and the digital sky above us is filled with the gospel. This wasn't man's brilliance. It was prophecy, wired into the system of a world unknowingly preparing for its own conclusion. The message has gone forth. The sound has reached the ends of the earth. So now, the question remains: if the final word has been preached, what comes next? 9. The preparation for the third temple. Let no one deceive you, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, who opposes and exalts himself, so that he sits as God in the temple of God. 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. The temple must stand again, not as a metaphor, not as a spiritual truth, but in stone, in shadow, in sacrifice, because Scripture declares that before the return of Christ, the man of lawlessness, the Antichrist, will sit in the holy place. But that means the holy place must return. For nearly 2,000 years, the Temple Mount has been silent. No incense, no ark, no veil, only dust and dome and contested prayer. But in the last decade, and especially by 2025, preparation has moved from speculation to construction. The Temple Institute in Jerusalem has recreated over 90 temple instruments, according to Levitical design. Priests from the tribe of Levi have been identified via DNA and trained in ritual practice. Architectural plans have been drafted. Digital renderings of the Third Temple circulate online and in Orthodox circles. The altar of sacrifice has already been built, and test offerings have occurred outside the Temple Mount. In 2023, 5 red heifers arrived. By 2025, 2 remain unblemished. The last puzzle piece for ritual purification is alive, breathing, and guarded. And the mount itself, Tensions are boiling. Jewish ascents are at an all-time high. The status quo is fracturing. Religious leaders whisper of timeframes. Security experts warn of unrest if the foundation stone is touched. And yet, a silent momentum pushes forward. What was once unthinkable, the rebuilding of the temple, is now a realistic national aspiration. But prophecy speaks clearly. This temple is not for revival. It will be hijacked, polluted, occupied. The Antichrist will rise in its shadow, and the world will believe the lie birthed from its inner court. So when the walls rise again, they will bring with them more than sacrifice. They will bring the countdown, the final conflict, the moment where time meets eternity. And when that first stone is laid, will the church be watching, or will it already be gone? 10. The drying of the Euphrates, and the 4 angels released. The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up. And the 4 angels, which were bound in the great river Euphrates, were loosed. Revelation 16:12 and 9:14. It began with a drought, but beneath the surface, it was never just about water. We've already seen the Euphrates dry, stone by stone, year by year. But few noticed what came next. The book of Revelation describes not just a river drying, but 4 angels bound beneath it. Not holy angels, not messengers, but instruments of judgment, held back for one specific hour, day, month, and year, to kill 1/3 of mankind. It is one of the most cryptic passages in prophecy, a blend of divine precision and apocalyptic terror. And yet, in late 2023, viral footage emerged from Iraq. A crevice, where the Euphrates had receded, revealed a sealed cavern. Locals claimed to hear whispers, strange echoes. By 2024, international researchers confirmed the site was ancient, likely pre-Assyrian, containing ritual altars, iron chains, and carvings resembling winged beings. The videos were quickly scrubbed from mainstream platforms, but the prophecy community had already seen it. And now, in 2025, the river has dried even further. Archaeological teams have been blocked. The region is under military lockdown, and whispers grow louder, not from under the river, but around the world. Unrest, unnatural disasters, unexplainable violence, a growing darkness, without clear origin. Are the angels already released? If they are, what is holding back the wave they were born to unleash? Because Revelation says they are not random, they are calculated, they are timed, and they are lethal, and they will not act alone. For after their release comes the beast, the false peace, the final deception. So now we are left with one question, one thread of dread that ties every fulfilled prophecy into one trembling truth. If the seals are open, if the trumpets are sounding, if the rivers are silent, then what is already walking among us? The stones are shifting, the sky is listening, the hourglass is cracking, and prophecy is no longer prediction. It is now the world we wake up in.